So here we are. You see, when I'm doing these videos, what am I doing? Exercising. I'm not walking because I'm trying to look a certain way. I'm actually exercising. This is what I do all day, every day. Walking the walk. So you're coming into my time. Just need to establish that. Now, I would really like to clarify that the following information is not to be abused. This is something that I've known for 15 or 20 years now. And I used to live as a code according to this. And I saw the immense power that it had in the transformative aspects of even evil people can quote unquote benefit from it. And when I started to see how it was being misused with any moral compass, any ethical or values, ethical based value system, and what led me into developing EPL and the principles that I follow so ardently and so strictly, ascetically even today, came from the knowledge of how quickly a human being can fall, how quickly they can lose the perspective of a self at all. And so if you are to do something so radical and so composite shifting as to burn off all that fat, bolster your skin, bolster your health, utilize a positive, amazing affirmation state such as orthomolecular science and nutrition, and to use it for such guile and such means as to get a foothold or have a benefit over the next person, thereby just adding into the populist movement. Please don't try this. Please don't do this, okay? And through the course of this transformation that I went through, I misanthropically hated people. And something that the great Ben Howard, one of my favorite musicians, said, and it just stuck with me, is he said, I've always, in Tiny Desk session with BBC, which is an amazing performance, just where he's being himself, and I hope you're doing well, Ben. And I hope that your ailment is, and that's who I'm doing this for. I'm doing this for the people who are striving and making strides spiritually, even economically, socioeconomically, through physical sciences, through from Robert Bigelow on down. I'd like to see these people prosper. I would like to see them do well. And like I said, I digress. Something that Ben Howard said is, I always like to think of a song as more of a gesture. And that really allowed me to realize that even in the transitory state that people are in, many of them who are doing evil or who are doing selfish things don't mean to do that. And to psychoanalyze it, you're still going to come up with a deep hatred of people when you see the child trafficking, when you see the things that are emerging today with in the disclosure and ufology, Ross Cohart and Richard Dolan, many other people, they bring about the full disclosure that you can see on like the Sean Ryan show, Eric Hecker interview, episode 65, 66. Very depressing stuff when you walk away with the full weight of what's going on, you know. Stuff that Diane Pasulka has talked about on Danny Jones' podcast, and many other interviews that she's been on. And it gets to this point where it can lead you into a very depressive state. And then when you see these people who are aware of this and they're just trying to sell books, not accusing anyone that I aforementioned, but I'm just saying, you're actually profiting off of the subject matter. You're putting yourself, like I say, you're throwing yourself back into the populist movement. It's ridiculous. So I didn't want to feed into that, so I pulled it away. Even though my results were amazing, and I was a walking billboard with a 26-inch waist, the people that I'd end up training were toxic. I'm not saying every client that I ever had was a toxic person. What I am saying is that in a toxic world, the healthiest thing is going to bring about only the latter, the toxic aspect of not only ourselves in a sort of holographic, transmorphic state, but it's just going to expound upon the evils that pervade. And I didn't want to feed into that. And it was really difficult because I knew that once this discovery was made, and especially if appetite itself could go under direct attribution and control, that something like this, where you could radically, it gets a little bit into hypothesis with Dan Duquesne's diet, where the death wish diet, where you're looking at these certain, not to take them quite literally, but to say, if you begin to hypothesize outside the bracketed, you're thinking outside the box, in other words. And a lot of times radical concepts, even stuff that Mike Mentzer talked about, it's like, if you look at those more of gestures, right, where they had to base their entire life on it, because then it started putting food on the dinner table, literally, and then people get stuck in that. I recollect Terrence McKenna, somebody that I extremely respect as well, but his brother talking about the fact that he ended up cranking these books out and backing the whole psychedelic research thing as a lifestyle and a way of life, instead of treating it as if it's a transitory notion, a whimsical notion, a gesture, So treat this information as if it's a gesture. I will be laying out, as I go back into this, exactly how I did it. But you've got to understand that the knowledge that we know today about the Merkaba, about the human body and the connection, that once you get to a place where you are manifesting perfection, the universe is aware of you, okay? And it gets into such topics, such areas that seem non-related at first, but they're entirely related. When you look at Vitruvian Man, you've got to look further into aesthetics and the Enlightenment era and where all that was cut off. Like, what if you had a whole society of perfect people, perfect physical specimens of perfection, walking around, and not only had they reached the status or the existential state of physical perfection, there is a cymatic holographic interplay that occurs where there are such mechanisms in play with light and the refraction of light topographically that pass through us. If you get into quarks and other phenomenology with quantum physics, you realize that the pervading consciousness and the information, right, is very whimsical. It is very much just a notion, right? And these gestures that we make always have to have a principle-based protocol. They have to have a plan. or we are just self-indulgent, I'm going to say it, fart machines that are high off our own and glorified off of our own flatulence, right? Really look at yourself. Allow the transformation to take place. Because if you are to achieve what you would only esteem and through the eye of the beholder, other people, as this physical perfection, lust shouldn't come into the picture, neither envy. If you have the information available to you to do it, and you're not, then you can only chalk that up to laziness. Am I wrong here? Can I hear an amen? Like, envy and lust only come from inactivity. So once you're active, once you're utilizing the active notion, right? And so the danger is that people want to fall back on their laurels. They want to suck their cheeks in and sit on a mountaintop looking down on other people, feeling like they are above the populist movement, above everybody. They won, right? Where if any single one of us had the godlike, the central figure, the godlike status, like they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So with this in mind, as you venture on and you watch my channel, please be aware that when you think you're going through something that seems so subtle, that seems so slight, as to go in the pursuit of physical perfection, you are asking and you are entering, you are an entered apprentice, and you are entering into territories where you have started a project, the great work, and that's you, that you are going to have to purify and perfect every aspect of you, but it's still just a notion.
Of protein. I'm eating like a minimum of 9 or 10 hamburger patties, or like 4 pounds of hamburger meat, and they feel amazing off of that. For me, I pretty much have been sticking with beef and eggs, right? But if you switch over to a whey protein fast, and the secret is, this is the secret here. This is the second video on this little secret, not telling you to do it, but this is the secret. It's not just taking in a full scoop of whey protein or 5 scoops a day. It's about treating your body as if it's on a drip system, like you're in the hospital, and you're taking small amounts of the high quality protein every hour, not even on the hour. A lot of times I would do it every half hour. I would scoop 15 or 20 scoops of protein in a bottle and do nothing but that every day for months at a time. And not only was I shredded, I was closer toward 40, and people thought I was in my early 20s. So needless to say, it sets off that autophagy, and it does something really miraculous and amazing in terms of anti-aging, that it can only be attributed to Billy J. Saley's Heal with Amino Acids and Nutrients that she came up with way back in the day. Was on the President's Council for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. She came up on the information, and the secret is orthomolecular nutrition, right? This is why the supplement industry was slammed down. She met a brick wall. She came up with the most revolutionary information. She should be hailed as a hero, actually. But instead, she passed away several years ago now, and she slipped away into obscurity, and everybody is such a backstabber, and they're so competitive, and they all want to be first to the gate, that you don't even hear her talked about. And it's a shame. But in infamy, you could say, her books live on. And you can read her research. Now, several of these things have been updated. Several of the items at hand, just like Rudin's work with flax and essential fatty acids, right? Where in the early 1980s, 1981, he made such claims that, finding the perfect omega balance could actually cure people who had unipolar, bipolar, certain fringe mental illnesses, right? I think he even went much deeper than that, but he couldn't publicize it because they were pretty huge claims. And he would see these miraculous things happen with people, right? For about a 6-week period, right? And then after that, there'd be a major drop off. And the reason being that we know now, according to Rhonda Patrick and a lot of the work that she states, and why her channel is so based on omega-3s, is it's those omega-3s that you've got to bolster. And that's what those eggs will do, right? If all you can do is eat those 5, 6 eggs a day, today I've had 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've had 12 eggs. I've had 3 hamburger patties. So that right there is, I'm already sitting at 2,200 calories. So once I have this heavy cream, those are my 5 eggs actually. So this is it. This is 500 plus calories. I digress. So yeah, it'll be about 2,300 calories altogether. But I did have 7 hard-boiled eggs earlier and my 3 hamburger patties. So today is going to be another 3,500 calorie day, and I'm feeling like working out. I don't know about you, but this carnivore stuff, it's working. So Rogue Beast Warrior out, Rogue Beast Warrior Systems, and as soon as we start showing those striations, that's when people start listening, don't they? Mm-hmm.
So in that, neither should we worship or want to be worshipped by other people. It's a big responsibility to no longer have all of the constraints and road blockages, and to have a free interplay with the road ahead of you, and to be able to choose exactly how and where and what you're going to achieve, and to rapidly take up information, to connect yourself with the divine. And it seems like such an arbitrary aspect, right? That how could I miss this? I've dieted before. I've had whey protein before. I've done cycles of different diets, like where I've gone on and off of diets. But once you learn how to control the dietary aspects of ketosis, gluconeogenesis, supercompensation, these are harmonic octave tones. You will gain a homeostatic algorithm that ties into the rhythm of the entire universe and extends far beyond that through time, space, and dimension. So perhaps it's on a much more scalable level that we haven't gone into and ventured into as individuals, because we've had too many choices in front of us. We've been expecting the existential governorship and religions to tell us how to eat, when to eat, and what to do. And as we're all looking within, we've always had the answers there before us. And when I saw the strange shift in behavior from merely making myself into, again, a walking billboard. Here I am at the time working as a personal trainer, nutritionist, and stumbling upon this, reading sports nutrition texts, really taking it seriously, and then finally coming to the point where I'm like, how is it that people are missing this? Well, they're being misled, right? they end up taking steroids and going into bodybuilding, and that completely changes. It's a complete and total alteration from being in this homeostasis, right? So you're no longer resonating with the universe. You are finite. You are conditionally taking substances that are giving you a temporary finite attribution that you don't own. But once you, through the process of your soul, your body, soul, your spirit, and expression of this phi-based Vitruvian expression, you start to sink into this algorithm, right? And what I noticed is it's like a 3.3 day cycle, right? So you've got a few days where you're flitting in and out and going through these different gear shifting plans. Now that's before I really gained a admiration and a respect for something that I never thought in a million years. When clients would say, should I eat cheese? You never eat cheese. That's terrible, you know? And it's the cheese with the cracker that's the problem, right? So that gets back into insulin sensitivity. And very intelligent people that I named, that I aforementioned, you know, Dan Duquesne, Mike Mentzer. I'm not endorsing these people. I'm saying they were on to something, you know, along with Atkins and many other people, even Perdican, you know. All these people have extensive research and education behind them. And you don't just, you know, mimic them and live off their steam like is so popular in the culture today. That's what, you know, westernized people are snakes, you know, they're vipers, backstabbers, you know. There has to be an attribution. And, you know, from an Eastern perspective, it's not just all hail to the unseen dragon and, you know, we worship the government and everything goes back into the government and you're nobody. It's like, no, you should be acknowledged for your contribution, but what should also be known is that this energy that all these people are privy to, once you're cymatically connected, once you're in touch with what I'm talking about, is that rapid downloads of information will occur in your life. You can't have greed as your intention. There should be no malice in you. This is a purifying diet. It is a purifying way of living and being. You don't utilize the information for the benefit of self when the self is an illusion, right? So when you have tools available, and that's the danger with the US, that's the danger with where we are at right now, is the fact that there are many people that have nefarious intentions, that have a lot of firepower behind them. They have more available to them than if we lived in a pure principle-based universe, right? So that's the universal model that I push. That's the universe I live in. That's the universe that I believe in, where it should never take place that there are marginalized people, that there are people who pass away with all their hopes and dreams being crushed, where they would never meet the height of their potential, right? So there's a transformation that occurs, that a very unspeakable, malicious and malevolent energy, right? And I don't even believe it's an energy, because I don't think something like this could produce its own energy. And I think that explains a lot of the sacrifices and the human sacrifices and the conditional sacrifices, where if you're going to have this, you're going to have to give this up. And the Masons know this. They understand this. It's Charles F. Haanel. It's in the Master Key System. It gets into the subtext of, you are nothing but a theoretical abstract ego if you aren't taking on the role in society. And all of these roles in society are false. None of them are true. So in itself, right, makes people like Manly P. Hall and Dolores Cannon and many others just look like false monikers. They look like white lighters. They look like they were allowed to continue on with the work that they were doing as almost like stormtroopers that had lipstick on. They were intentionally put out there as a false flag to mislead you and to make you think that everything's fine, you know, like the Jedi trick. You are not seeing evil here. You will not worry about child trafficking. You will not worry about people having hellacious, terrible scientific experiments done on them that make the Nazis look like Girl Scouts, the Nazi scientists, you know. So when you look at the totality of what's happening, are you going to make yourself better? Are you going to be seen by the all-seeing eye and be validated as top shit, right? And then see yourself as God, and then where do we go from there? How many times has this happened over and over again? So we're all too eager to worship based on very nominal results, where the results of human achievement are on such a low, the bar is set very low as far as what we're capable of doing. Oh, you passed the bar exam, yay! You know, oh, you just set a new world record, yay! It's like you have no idea how you could smash through that and do those things and learn the information in the bar, and even more so correct everything in there and base it back on principles. You have no idea once you're really connected where you'll be and how fast you can move to where you could transpose yourself from one place to the other, right? So when you're working within the devil's playground, right, and you're basing everything on standards and norms with what we assume is gravity and the effects of gravity, and even more so gravitons and conjecture about the existence of, you know, we're even quickly breaking past something that I very much respect, which is the electric universe model, the Thunderbolt project. Yeah, that's as close as we can currently get to an explanation, but what comes after that? You know, what comes after from the plasma, from these operating quadrants and fields of said shift information? And what we are is that conscious display of more, of becoming more, of it never ending. We are not tourists and we are not terrorists. We are God in action, in motion, in thought. And when we are no longer contributing, right? When we are no longer evolving, when we are no longer becoming, when we aren't following along with the rapid sequence of the phi expression through Metatron's cube and becoming more, when we are not the operators at the seat, at the helm with our own personal Merkaba, we are dangerous to the totality, and the totality will shut us down and stop us. So if you want to know about a universal model, that's where we are living right now. We are living within our own prison because we are capable of transcending. That's what Maslow added in to the hierarchy of needs. Now these people came into these revelations, right? But it's said that people like C.S. Lewis and others, probably going back to Constantine, they were following more of a Rosicrucian Christianity, seeing that, oh, I see, we can control them and use this as a control mechanism, and I'll be sitting up here above them. So if I relate with them and make them merely think that I am Christian and that I believe in the peasant's religion, well, then we can control it and orchestrate it and manipulate it and play them as if we are at the master organ, right? As the master organist playing the harmonics of the cymatic frequency that controls them all, right? So once you are in the driver's seat once you do something that seems so unrelated as to just better yourself, nobody, I mean, be honest with yourself, come on. If you could achieve, well, if you could lose, like, if I ask you, how much weight do you think you should lose? I'd like to, realistically, I'm pre-diabetic, I'm in my mid-50s, right? I could lose 100, 120 pounds, but I'd be happy at 80 pounds. Radically, that changes when you have all the attributions before you, and you know scientifically 100% that you could lose every pound, and not only that, you could shrink the skin around you as an absolute, and you could turn back the years, 20 or 25 years. Wouldn't you take it? It's like, oh, hell yeah. It's like, who would you be then? How much humility have you learned through the process of age? This whole thing, samsara. It's made you, right? So if you were to suddenly go on and move forward and think beyond, I'm not going back and regressing, I'm moving forward into transcendence, right? You have to get away from age as a bridge to the past. And that's what these malevolent beings, which it's being hypothesized whether or not these are just human beings, and you can call me crazy, but if you are, then you haven't looked into Robert Bigelow and really heard what he's said in interviews. You haven't followed Nathaniel Gillis, and I highly suggest you do. You haven't followed Steve Mira. There are many, many people who are very deserving of your ear and your respect, right? And to really postulate and think about this in terms of yourself. Now, I'm not asking you to step outside yourself. I'm asking you to empirically and pragmatically approach this and to really see the phenomenon in your own life and the things where, yeah, I've had weird experiences. Amen. I've been stopped, right? And I almost don't even want to say amen, because when I look at Billy Carson, he's talking Am and Ra means amen, and that's probably true. And it's kind of like, well, how do we even approach the general construct of our communication, right? Where we're speaking negatives against ourselves just by using the language that we are. The power of our intention must resonate through, right? So I believe that there's a rapid quickening, a new genesis, a neogenesis that occurs when we are simply perfecting the form. When we show that we not only are capable of perfecting the form, our form, who we are physically, but then how that manifests into something much more than just a physical expression. You're not doing it so you can fit into a bathing suit. I mean, think about that. Those are things that you've said in the past, right? Well, I just want to be able to wear a one piece. I just want to wear a two piece. I just want to be able to wear board shorts and get out there and just not feel like I'm a fat fuck, walking around. I just want to get down to a 32-inch waist. Well, would you accept that if you could have a 26-inch waist and a 46-inch chest? Would you? What if that became effortless and you had tons of energy and vitality while you were doing that, and it not only benefited you on a level of physicality, but it benefited you on a level where now all those amino acids have crossed to the blood-brain barrier. All those excitatory amino acid synergist catalysts are firing off in a pattern. You're taking in your nutrients. You're making money. Things are happening. Now is the ego just going to grow disproportionately to where you start to communicate, and you start to use highbrow terms, and you're using 50-cent terms. I have a huge vocabulary, and you won't hear me tap into a lot of the etymology, nomenclature, the things. I use colloquialism because it grounds me. But that's the whole point about digression and accepting a lesser path. Once you actually have the firepower that you're utilizing, right? So this week is a huge week for me because I've been putting this off for a very long time, because I did it for all the wrong reasons. I would go back into my protein fasts, and I would do it for all the wrong reasons, right? I would instantly begin to see that serpent's head, let's just say, pop up, right? Where the false ego in expression that feels like it is 100% evolved and transgressed beyond the principal protocol of being and becoming, and has just become. I stand above everyone because I look a certain way. I've found a secret and nobody else knows that secret, so that makes me special and it makes them idiots. Don't you see that that's the root of the problem? Is that these autistic people are entered into, from Einstein to Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking, that these people are extremely susceptible and weak in their own right, and they are basically empty avatars that are 100% being told and directed to do certain things. And the reason that they were so accessible is because they didn't have any other construct within them. They were nothing. They were empty shells. They got off on the phenomenon and the phenomenology of self and selfhood and expression, right? But the main thing is that they didn't take themselves so seriously that they, every time they passed a mirror, they sucked in their cheeks and thought, wow, I'm a god. No, they understood that they're tapped into something, and something is leading the way, something is downloading. And when they would go to sleep at night and wake up the next morning, like Tesla, with all the information written down beside them in their bed, and sometimes in another language where they had to actually decode it, it became 100% undeniable that the information wasn't coming from them. But did they tap into it? And that's what I'm telling you, is when you change the form, when you alter the form, when you have all the constituents at the ready, when you are firing as a phi sequence pattern all the way down to the most base molecular scale, right? And then you are going through expression, right? The things that you say, the things that you do, the topics of conversation, just like right now, and the physical attributes of who you are building into something. You need to connect with others who are doing the same thing. And only then will you see what it's really all about. But where do we stop every single time, right? What are the great elders? What do they represent? What are these top gods throughout antiquity? What are they really? They're people that learned through a firing pattern to work together. And so if there's anything happening here, it's the waiting for that great work must have been anguish for the pervading consciousness that has been waiting for people to wake up and attribute this in their own lives and begin to take actions and actionable deeds in the place where this is the one thing that needs to be protected, and that is purity and perfection. To purify the system is what perfects the system. So on a localized scale, so that it doesn't become a higher concept that we're unable to understand, we have a body. We have the body available to us that is able to assert, well, what does purity mean in your own life, in your own walk? And that is, well, I'm talking about on the very base, living a pure diet, getting rid of the toxins, having all the amino acids, both in your blood-brain barrier, your muscle nitrogen levels, right? All the way through to the health of your organs, that all those amino acids, all those building blocks are available in autophagy and health promotion. And then what's going to happen when you are at the height of your health, your endocrine system's cranking away and working so well, it's like, you just tuned up that 1955 Chevy and it's cruising down the road and your body is humming, right? What is going to manifest from that? And then you start to see that what's being placed before us is neurolinguistic sociology, sociological manipulation, and through government systems, false mathematics, false philosophies. Once all that crap isn't in front of you and you're able to inflect, right? And you're able to think about, what is my philosophy? What is my body telling me? When I meditate, what am I connected to? And then once you are resonating to that and you're connecting to that, you're not going to have any Kundalini experience, okay? That's the trick. You are not going back into samsara. You are not taking, you're no longer taking seriously the expression of selfhood and the idea of the false self and the false notion. No, what you are doing is you're expressing at the height, beyond human achievement, of what perfection has to state, what purification has to state. And that is when the uncertainty principle, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, begins to fall apart. Is that you don't have a delineation between the tie of time and space and dimension as an event. You become the event. The time is dictated by and through you, and through the firing pattern of that purity and perfection, the Messiah, you, in total evolution of the self, you begin to connect with everyone and everything around you, and the Merkaba is firing and there is no stopping it. That's where we need to be. Rogue Beast Warrior out.